CS2 has been released for just over a year now, and in that year we've gone from a completely laggy mess with no new content and Michael Jackson peaks to no more Michael Jackson peaks and still no new game content. All jokes aside, I think the dev team at Valve have done a very respectable job at putting together a game that has the bare bone components to potentially outperform CSGO, but what is holding them back? In this video, I'm going to go over the main things that CS2 is lacking from the perspective of someone who has played this game as their job for the last couple years. So starting out, we're going to address a problem that I'm sure all of you have seen already, and that is cheaters. Valve has been relying on a new anti-cheat system for CS2 called VACnet. Basically an AI anti-cheat that's supposed to learn what cheaters look like and ban them. This has resulted in some pretty funny false bans.
Look me. Oh I'm back, band.
But this isn't the main issue. Having previously been at the number 2 spot on the world ranking for their in-game premiere rating system, I stopped playing because it got to a point where over half of my games had cheaters, and that's not an over-exaggeration. When you get to high premiere rating, there's essentially a rating ceiling that is near impossible to pass because the amount you win for a game is nothing in comparison to the amount you lose, meaning one cheater could potentially set you back 5 wins, pretty much wasting 4 to 5 hours of your life trying to hit a rating that's not possible. Before I get a ton of comments saying it's an AI anti-cheat, of course it's going to suck in the beginning, you're right. The anti-cheat is leaps and bounds above where it was at the beginning, and the built-in matchmaking systems are much more playable than they were at the start. But this is where we get into the debate of if the rough start was worth it or not, and in my opinion, I think the answer lies somewhere in between. Yes, the anti-cheat was terrible in the beginning and probably turned a lot of players away from the game. I would imagine there's a way they could keep the VACnet in the learning phase while having an actual anti-cheat do the banning, and then once VACnet has learned enough, you can release the VACnet and have that do the rest of the work. On the flip side, I think the anti-cheat will be good enough given enough time. Could it have been rolled out much worse? Yes. Could it have been rolled out much better? Also yes. But this might be too much to ask from a small indie company like Valve. So while we're on the topic, how much is too much for Valve? Valve is a multi-billion-dollar company with a very different way of running operations compared to other traditional companies. As explained in an article by Eton Business School, there are no bosses at Valve. Anyone can come up with an idea or a project. Most projects are started from an individual employee or a group of employees, which is followed by recruiting people to form a team. This means that not only are projects created by employees, but deadlines are too. Whatever the employees at Valve want to work on, they'll create. However, that doesn't always mean the community gets what they want. And just as a disclaimer, I'm not sure if the CS2 dev team functions in this way, but seeing as this is the standard for the company, it's safe to assume that they definitely have a more laid-back environment compared to the dev teams working on other games at other companies. Does this mean that the hierarchy system Valve has created is flawed? Not necessarily. The school of thought that Valve is operating in is that if we let employees work on things they're passionate about, it will most likely be better than if they were forced onto a project. This should result in happy employees and good products. But we can see an example of this having issues with the release of
Counterstrike 2.
Before we get into that, I'd like you guys to check out today's sponsor, Skins Monkey. Have a skin you're getting bored of? Trade it. Want a skin at the lowest price on the market? Buy it. Skins Monkey is the best automated skin trading site with a large selection of skins to choose from and a 24/7 live chat support. You get a 30% deposit bonus, and using code POLO, you can get an extra 5% on top of that. Meaning if you want a skin worth $135 but you only have 100, you can get that skin on Skins Monkey right now. And if you don't have anything to trade, they do free giveaways every day, so everyone has something to gain from using Skins Monkey. Using code POLO, you can also get a $5 bonus on your first trade, so click the link in my description, use code POLO, and make the most of it. CS2 was promised to be fully released in summer of 2023, which I can only imagine to be an estimated guess. The only thing I can't understand is on what basis this guess was made. It gave Valve a maximum 6-month window after the closed beta started in March to produce a game at the standard of, well, a full released game? What we got was a half-baked game a month after the promised release. But before we get ahead of ourselves, CS2 is running on a completely different engine, with a completely different netcode and a completely different tick rate system. So obviously it would be extremely hard to recreate that gem that was CSGO. And before you forget, CSGO wasn't always a gem.
What?
If anything, CSGO's release was much worse than CS2's. Broken hitboxes that could be observed using a simple console command weren't fixed until 4 years after the game's release. Kerrigan, it wasn't your fault.
To work with the bomb plant's gonna take 5 seconds alone. He's gonna go for it behind the fountain. Kerrigan just gonna charge him down. He's gonna miss quite a few pistol shots. Kenny, yes, he picks up the kill. Kerrigan should not have put that. He gets the second.
Okay, maybe it was. Simple's falling op clutch on Cash could be attributed to a bug in the game that only factored in the time you spent in the air when calculating an accuracy, making players completely accurate while falling off a high ledge. Simple's falling doesn't even factor into this op shot here. The game registers this as a normal standing accuracy no-scope. His nuts are massive, but he probably just won this because of a game bug. Some of you may remember this falling Tech 9 shot from Get Right. No one knew it at the time, but he was fully accurate here. This wasn't a crazy shot. He was literally fully accurate here. This was in 2016, also 4 years after the game release. The question here is, should this lack of updates be okay? And, well, the answer comes down to perspective. In an interview done with PCGamer.com, a CS2 dev shared his outlook on the launch of CS2, and if it was successful or not. They stated, launching the game has massively accelerated the pace of improving CS2, so we think that launching the game when we did was the right time. Even if the landing was, and still is, bumpy. Ultimately, this is the fastest way to get CS2 to where we all want it to be 1, or 5, or 10 years from now. There's a couple things to break down here. The CS2 development team is not focused on the short-term outcomes of CS2. Rather, they're looking at creating a game with longevity and working towards the goal as they see fit. This will mean some bugs won't get patched immediately. A great example of this would be the boost bug, where after dying and ragdolling to someone else's ragdoll, future rounds would think you're still ragdolling into other player models, resulting in inaccurate shots when boosting because the game thinks your player model should be falling through the person boosting you. This bug was known since the beta of the game, and who knows how many pro matches this affected. When did Valve patch this bug? Almost a full year after the release. And then they released another update breaking it. And then a Twitter user fixed it. So one would assume that Valve is trying to focus on other things for the game rather than small bugs, right? Well, there's no way in telling. But just like I said at the beginning of the video, we're a year now into CS2's release, with some changes to the netcode, some bug fixes, and smaller little updates to get the game feeling how they intend for it to feel. No new content, no new game modes, and if anything, way less game modes than there was in CSGO. There hasn't even been an operation in over 3 years. This video isn't a dunk on Valve for updating their game so slowly, rather my take on why they're updating their game so slowly. In the end, we're all on the outside looking in, and it's better to take a step back and look at things objectively. Is it rational to think the game is a massive failure and it'll never get better? Probably not. Is it rational to think the game's release is a massive success and everything to do with the game is God's gift? Probably not. The answer lies somewhere in between, and over time we'll see what Valve are actually planning on doing with their game. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what your guys' take is on how Valve are treating their game. Thanks for watching.